The April 17th, 2025 Auburn City Council workshop will be called to order. We have a single item tonight, the FY26 budget. There's a number of items for us to cover. First we'll get a update from Dr. Doris regarding the school committee action, then the manager regarding the follow-up items from the Tuesday meeting, then an update from the manager on where we're at with valuation estimate from the assessor's office, and then we'll talk about a couple of the off-budget special revenue account items. So, Dr. Doris? Chair Albert, thanks very much for coming this evening.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to share some updates with you in terms of our budget. This one. Okay. Before I get into the updates, I just want to remind everyone that this year we worked in partnership with the city to create a budget that had no new programs or services. Our priorities were to maintain student services, address rising student needs, and use existing positions to do that. We also needed to manage our special education and healthcare cost increases and also balance educational excellence with fiscal responsibility and minimize tax impact on residents. So since I last came to you, we've been able to make some adjustments to our budget. Our health insurance numbers came in under what we had anticipated, so we budgeted for 15%, came in at 13%, and that was a savings of $168,531. So that was a reduction to our budget. And then the LRTC, which is the Lewiston Regional Technical Center, we entered into a cost-sharing agreement this year, and we over-budgeted, and that allowed for another savings of $56,469. So altogether, that was $225,000 that we were able to reduce from our overall operating budget. At last night's meeting, we had a discussion about the City Council's request that we look at, could we get to $500,000? And we talked about taking the additional $275,000 out of the fund balance. And we agreed to do that last night, so we're able to get to $500,000 as an overall reduction. I do want to point out that if we had to go any further, then our programs and services would be impacted. We would have to freeze open positions. We would need to eliminate teaching positions. We would end up with larger class sizes. We would have fewer interventions for our struggling students, and we would just overall have limited capacity to meet the increase in our students' needs.
Great, thank you very much. I appreciate the update and the hard work by your staff and by the school committee. So just to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly, so the reduction in the $500,000 would leave us at the same program and services level as the school budget came to us from the school committee, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Questions, thoughts, comments by the council? Council Platt?
Sure. I just make a comment. I just want to thank the work of the school department. I know I say this every several meetings, but obviously when posed with the thought of having to cut $500,000 from a budget, it's not an easy thing to do. But I think they've looked creatively at all of the buckets of where it can come from, and I do think where they're choosing to pull it from is is the right thing. Obviously, collectively as a council, we don't have a say in that, but I just want to say I want to commend them on the work they've done. I also want to commend the council. I think when we came into this process, it was our task to prioritize the things that we think taxpayers want to see, and that's what we've been working on the last 3 weeks. You guys know I've advocated for the school department for the last year and a half, and I will continue to do that. I think $1 spent in the school department is $1 well spent. I want to commend the council for making the right priorities and prioritizing correctly. As we look at the cuts that we're asking different departments to make, while I want to acknowledge that 500,000 is a large number to the school department, I also want to commend the council because it represents a 0.9% decrease of their operating budget. Compared, for example, we're asking police to cut about 2.5%, public works far more than that. So I think we've been fair by asking the council, the school committee to make a cut, but I think we've been restrained in our efforts to prioritize education, and I've heard it from a number of different counselors where they kind of draw the line for education, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. Council Walker?
Yes, I'd just like to say thank you to all the hard work that you've done. This is great, and I feel the same way as Councilor feels, so thank you very much.
Other comments, questions? Council Cowan?
Just a third thanks. I know you guys had to work very hard to look at this, and I'm very pleased to hear that it's not going to impact the services. Councilor Platts, I appreciate your comments and kind of putting it in that perspective. I do want to say that I've heard over the year and a half from a number of constituents, and I think that this is a priority. I think we've met what I've heard, at least in Ward 2, in terms of what's the respective prioritization. So I'm glad that we could land here. Council Milks.
Yeah, I want to thank you for the work that you did, and for someone my kids went through their whole time in the Auburn School Department. I've always supported teachers, and I've always supported the staff and what the school system has done, and so it's a tough time, and I'm very encouraged that you're also strategically looking at, in the long term, how we're going to use buildings. I'd rather not cut people, and if we can be more efficient. I'm excited about the gentleman that's running that's working in the new school, to the efficiency. So I thank you, and I thank the teachers. I appreciate what the teachers do every day, and what the staff, and so I appreciate it. And my family appreciates it, and the people of the school. I think the people of the city do appreciate what you guys are doing, and I'd like us to continue to foster communication between the people and the employees at the school department, so we can continue to innovate and improve the education system in our city. So that's where I'm coming from.
Thank you.
Council Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I mean, yes, I too agree with my council mates on you guys working hard to do this. Now, I've got a kind of a weird idea. I read in the paper that Lewiston is looking for more space for their students. With that said, if you worked out a plan and you had to decommission for a while a school, would you consider renting space to them or any other school, like maybe St. Dom's, if they need the extra space?
I guess the short answer is we would have to investigate. More to come. There are like multiple steps and dominoes that would need to happen, and we would look to this body, the school committee's body, on the appropriate decision with anything in regards to the buildings.
I think that's a great question. We would definitely look into that.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Great, so I think that it's the consensus of the council relative to the school department budget is with this decrease. We're expecting to see you back on the 5th after the school committee acts to adopt the budget so that the council can approve the school budget in time for the June referendum. Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming in
Thank you
tonight.
very much. We appreciate your support.
So just to level set where we're at, and then we'll move on to the manager. So where we left this off on Tuesday night, so where we're at on an operating expense basis, we're at a 2.79% year-over-year increase for the city side, 4.9% for the school, 6.4 for combined intergovernmental, 8.61 for the county tax, and when we take into account the non-property tax revenue, we're at a tax levy increase of 5.54%. And so I guess I call on the manager to, if you could update us on, there was a couple of follow-up items, one related to energy efficiency and a couple different proposals relative to public works.
Thanks, Mayor. So I did pass out to you a handout from Public Works relating to some discussions regarding, we were at what happens if you reduce it by 50, and then also there was a request, well, what happens if we were to restore it by 75,000? So you have both of those bulleted out for you. I think that, it's comes down to people. There was really no room to try to maneuver around materials, because I really think that if we try to make any adjustments on materials, we're just coming back for you mid-year and saying we're over budget on materials. And so, we'll continue working for recruitment and filling vacancies and making sure we've got the people to do the job. But the reduction would be another equipment operator 2 position. It would be a little more than the 50,000 if you wanted to get to that. And then if you wanted, and the impacts are listed out for you. It's basically pulling from other crews to try to make that happen, to maintain the striping crew that we're talking about. That just means we're pulling 2 people instead of 1 because of the reduction we're already looking at. But then it has impacts on all the other work that they do with road reconstruction. There's certain roads that we're responsible for. We construct those. We have to maintain some of those. We have to grade some of the roads that are not pavement. And so that we have teams that are going out to do all that. There's certain ditching that they have to do every year. The list is long. And so that reduction would be another position, but it would have impact on all those bulleted items that they were able to provide for you. If the council wanted to add back in the up to 75,000, then it would be the equipment operator that was taken out. And so that's what we would see as our priority. That obviously has an impact on winter operations. Currently, as I met with the team and we discussed this even further, you have plow drivers that are out. They'll do a loop, especially those that are in the 8-hour area, depending on timings of storm and all that kind of stuff. But they might be out doing that. Then they come in and then they jump into a sidewalk tractor. They do that as long as they can, and then they get back in their truck and they go out and plow. So we're shifting people as much as we can to make sure that some of those critical areas are being done and addressed. Having that extra equipment operator allows that to take place. Also allows us to reduce overtime. So we don't have the right people now, we're bringing somebody in, because we do split them up for 8-hour shifts, 3 shifts in a 24-hour period. So we're bringing somebody in or holding them over for a longer period to try to offset that vacancy on that shift. Reduction facilities and energy, the 15,000, it's a gamble. If you want to reduce it, then it's another one of those where I talked about efficiencies. We're finding efficiencies. We're working through a lot of efficiencies within all our facilities with our new hire here in this position. It would be a combination from electricity, water, sewer, potentially, and then natural gas as well. So, so the 15,000 would be, we would just say, okay, let's reduce those three categories. It's rolling the dice. We're pretty, right now, I feel pretty confident with the numbers we provided. But again, that would be a line item where we'd come back and say, okay, you have an emergency fund, or we're going over. If everything else seems to be solid on the budget, then that's fine. We go back to that emergency fund when all other line items are at their max and we know we're not going to have any room. That's when we dip into that. Other than that, then we know we might go over in that line item. But the overall, with this, the way that we set this up, this department though, there wouldn't be any room within that department under facilities because there's no staff other than one position. So like in Public Works, when they go over on salt, a lot of time, or overtime, a lot of times we're taking it out of the regular salaries because we have some vacancies. Same thing with fire. When fire is over in their overtime account, it's usually because we have vacancies in their regular salaries, we pull it from there. And then the goal is to try to balance out each one of those departments but before the end of the year. But if we don't have that, then that's what the emergency fund is there for. So
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So on those utility expenses, electricity, water, sewer, natural gas, were those projections made just based on historical data, or were those projections made hoping that this new employee could save us 10, 15%?
the projections were made based on holding the line. Even though every one of those categories, the cost increased, we didn't increase it because we said we're pretty sure we're going to see the efficiencies and we didn't need to increase those amounts.
So they probably went up 10%, which means we're only budgeted for 10% less, 90%.
90%.
Yeah.
Right. So,
Okay.
so that's, I'm hoping we'll have probably by August, September, I think we're going to be able to give a really good report, not just on the school facilities, but also, the city facilities, but also the school facilities on what's been taking place there. And then our goal will be by January of next year, we will have a really comprehensive capital replacement schedule for all of our facilities when it comes to HVAC and everything else that's within those facilities, just to make sure that we're giving you a really good report on that replacement schedule.
And one more quick follow-up, that position, he's grant funded, right?
No,
No, he's in the budget?
He's in the budget.
Fantastic.
What we were able to do is that we now provide the services for the school in a lot of different categories, right? For all the maintenance, fields, we've been working through that, and we have that MOU. The school then pays us, the city, for those services. We took that amount and we placed it in for that position. So, so that's how that's being offset.
So any questions from the council? There's three proposals for adjustments here to Public Works. One is a $50,000 further reduction. One is to add $75,000 back in, and the third one is reducing the energy line $15,000. Any thoughts on this? Councilor Cowan.
A couple questions. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the $50,000 reduction, second to last bullet, increased overtime, and then in contrast, the reducing overtime. Do you have a ballpark estimate, or perhaps it's better to call it a guesstimate, on what that might be? In other words, if we're going to reduce an additional $50,000, there's guaranteed there's going to be overtime. How much are we? What's the net gain there, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at.
If you were to reduce the 50, what would the overtime impact be? Is that, so I want to make sure I'm tracking the right bucket here.
Yeah. So like if we reduce in that in what was provided here, there's the $50,000 reduction, there's going to be an increase in overtime, so we're going to have less than $50,000 saved. In contrast, the $75,000 request was there'd be less overtime. I'm just trying to get a sense of the overall change we're talking about.
So I think that, I think the first number that we need to get to is, I understand the notes from Public Works. For the ask of the $50,000 reduction, they're reducing an equipment operator, which is more than a $50,000 reduction, so it doesn't come out to that, right? So to Councilor Cowan's point,
Great point, right.
that reduction would be something north of 50,000, and then we'd be taking the overtime off of that, and does that get you to the net 50 or otherwise?
No, I'm asking you to look at a crystal ball that doesn't exist, but if you have some sense of what, you know, are we
Scott
talking
predicts
half the
weather.
savings
He
or?
can do this. So,
That would be very hard. Like I said, we base our stuff on 20 storms, and if we have an easy winter next year, it might be okay. But this year, we went 10 over our normal, and, we're over on our overtime line right now as it is. So like City Manager Kroll said, we have to take drivers out of trucks, and they work around the clock until we get these sidewalks open. And if it's on a weekend, it's all pure overtime. So it really is hard to judge. It's based on the winter and what we have for storms.
I think you would just take that fringe amount in the difference, as the mayor was just saying, and you would just say, okay, that's probably what we're gonna apply to some overtime increases, because, as he noted on here, it's more than the 50, right? Because we take that position out, but that difference would probably roll over into some of those. So you would still see the $50,000 savings, but we would probably apply the fringe and everything else to that overtime line item. So that way they've got a little bit more room in that overtime line item.
Councilor Walker?
Yeah, a question. How many positions are not filled right now?
If we count all 3 of the striping positions that we added, we are 8 positions down. But we do have some people in the works. I think we have like 6 people, if they all pass their physicals and all of that, to come back. So that's where we're at right
So
now.
really 7, because it was 3, now we're gonna drop that, so we won't hire that person.
And those are not long-term vacancies, right? This is just churn as you go throughout the year. Some people leave, you're hiring. It's not, these aren't, leave the stripers aside because this is a new thing. For the other 4, it's not like you haven't been able to fill those positions for 4, 5, 6 months.
Yeah, we were in pretty good shape. And I think it was because I said we were full staff, and then after that, it went the other way. But we had some promotions, and we've had some take other jobs. So yeah, we've had maybe 1 through the winter. It's just recently that we've had the promotions and 2 other people leave for other jobs.
Councilor Walker, did you have follow-up on that?
Well, I was going to ask the same thing that you just kind of asked, because I wanted to know what was the length of time that they didn't have a full staff.
I would just ask, how many equipment operator 2 positions do we have staffed? How many humans are in that position today, roughly?
I have it.
What I'm really asking is if we have 10 of those positions filled now and we're cutting 1, that's 10% of that position gone, and I'm trying to understand what.
So with the 3 that were added, we have a total of 21 equipment operators, and we're down 7 if you don't count the 1 that we're trying to take out.
Other questions or comments from the council?
So you had also asked for contracted services, so that's in that packet too, so you can see what we do there. And Councilor Walker had also asked, what parks are included in that. So you have that sheet, so you have all that information, so. Good. Thanks, guys.
Thoughts, Councilor Whiting?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the reduction in utilities. I was going to mention the other night I wasn't in favor of that, just because, we've got a new person who's very bright and will do a good job, but he needs really a year. You alluded to that needs some time to see what we can improve on. And I don't see costs going down, particularly with the tariff issue and much of the fuel coming into Maine, coming from Canada. The other thing is, I think this year might be unusual, but we're running about 8% more degree days this year. So if we're doing well with the utilities, that's a good thing, but it's still you know, who knows what we'll have next year, it's hard to tell.
Council Meltz?
So I understand, if the Public Works is down 7 operators, which is one of these one positions, and 6 people walked in that were perfect, we hire them, 7 people walk in, we hire them all. If this position was not in the budget, they could only hire 6.
No, it's actually, they're down 8, where I'm saying
Okay, but
only
it-
hire 7.
All right, so let's say
Let me figure
8
this
walked
out.
in, we eliminate the position, 8 walk in, we could hire them all. But if throughout the year, only 7 walk in, and we have the 8 budgeted, at the end of the year, assuming the budget's even, that money gets put into the fund balance, or gets returned into the capital balance, correct?
Everybody's budget does that. That's correct.
That's right. So, that's good. So I'm in favor of keeping the Public Works budget as is.
Other, Council
I
Pop?
introduced that 2 days ago, so I'll just say that. I'm happy to erase that and ignore that and not ask for a second reduction from Public Works. I will say I'm very curious to see what we're going to learn from the assessment department. That does affect if I think we need further cuts or not. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm not, any of this stuff, 50,000 reduction, don't need to see that. $75,000 add back, don't need to see that. 15,000 reduction facilities and energy, I'm fine scratching that as well. Curious to see what this assessor's report looks like.
Council Walker?
Can you tell me how many part-time people there'll be hired at Public Works?
Scott, if you know the answer, come on up, or I don't have to dig it out.
So right now in our budget, we have, I believe it's 50,000 for part-time help. We put the ad out, again, that's a hiring issue for us as well. So if we could get 3 or 4, we'd be very happy. We do have some of them in the works as well. So they would come on and work the summer. Again, we're against those rules too, that we have to, you know, we can only work them 30 hours and then we have to give them benefits. So it is a little harder to keep track of all that.
Does that mean we don't put any extra people on in the winter months at all?
We have been fortunate the past couple of years. We've had one that has come on and wanted to work the winter with us. He had a landscaping business, but he just got hired as our maintenance guy here at City Hall. So if we can find people like that, we would definitely take them. We just haven't had much luck in the past trying that.
Would them people ever be trained on a sidewalk plow, for instance?
So that's how it usually works, because most of the people we find don't have a CDL license, and we put them in that because it doesn't require a CDL.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, just one final question, Scott, sorry, before
Don't
you.
leave, Scott.
I'm just looking at the contracted services data. I just want to make sure I'm interpreting this correctly. That's currently what is in the standard, in the standing budget that you've carried over. So I guess my question is, if we did include that additional person for striping, would it allow for any of these things to be reduced or no?
Those, I'll answer for him, because I know he'll try to come up with some. Those were actually built in with those numbers, so not reducing is just more, is there anything else
We're
that we
having
need to shift
something else
contracted?
left off or
Right.
contracted, thank you.
Yeah, just to remind the council, the striping that's on this second page is different than the 3 stripers. The 3 stripers do the intersections. There's specialized equipment that we don't have that you'd have to do this long line striping.
Yeah, I was thinking more of the smaller items like field maintenance or other things that if there was additional time, because we are, what you've pointed out correctly is if we're eliminating that position, you're having to take someone from somewhere else to do the 3-person required striping.
That's correct.
Council Walker?
Yeah, when you're showing the cemeteries and the green space, is that all contracted?
That is correct.
So again, you know where I'm going with that. That's all contracted work, but again, the city allowed you to take a parks department, which handled all this work in their load, and yet you've reduced all of this, and you've still got more men than you had at that time.
I don't believe that is correct, Councilor Walker. I believe we had more men. When I first came here, we were up 65, 66 people. We're at 60 right now. So we do not have the men that we had back then.
Yeah, a lot of that, though, is because you've done a heck of a lot better with equipment. You've changed what the old plowing stuff used to be in this city that always took 2 men. You've got it so one person can operate every truck that's on the road. And that's why you were able to reduce. Plus, you got rid of all the recycling. That took at least 3 men that you no longer needed, but you kept a couple to move on in your jobs. So I believe because of the equipment you've got and because of the manpower that you picked up, even though they weren't Class 2 drivers, or most of them were Class 1, but not Class 2, when you look at all of it and you look at what I think the councils over the years have been good enough to give you the equipment that you've needed to make it better, I think that all evens out pretty darn much myself, because you're still at 40-something men. I don't know the exact number, but it's around there, 54.
Yes, 60 is with admin and everything, so.
Yeah, that's also another thing that has changed some. I remember back quite a few years ago, you could have one foreman that took care of 20 men. Now, the way you have your ratio up there, I don't think there's any time the one foreman has more than 10 guys. So, and in my opinion, one foreman should be able to, there's probably rules that say no to that, I don't know. But again, I think supervisors can handle more than 10 people at any one 8-hour shift.
Other questions? Councilor Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If we decide not to cut anything in this department or any of the other departments, because we can justify for not doing it, and if we're trying to wait for our assessor to tell us what our evaluation is so that we can figure out all the things between the budgets, between the school, city, and all the other things, if we can't bring our mill rate down to where it's more affordable for those seniors and new homeowners, are we going to go back and relook at these things that we've given a pass on right now?
Yeah, so I think from a process standpoint, we should continue where we are now and see what the sense of the council is on these public works changes. Then we'll move on to the assessor's report. We'll calculate this out as to what that means, and we'll get a sense of where the council thinks that stands, and if they're not satisfied with that, we'll have to go back through again to see what other cuts could be made. So what's the sense of the council? I think we heard from Councilor Platts. Councilor Walker, is what's your thought on these 3 items? Should include them, not include them?
Well, again, I'd like to wait and hear from the other person.
Okay. Councilor Mills?
I'm good with not doing, with Stephen where we're at.
Councilor Cowan?
I also am okay with not including any of these 3.
Councilor Whiting?
Same here.
And Councilor Gary? Okay. So I think while there's not, it's not unanimous, I think the sense of the council is not to make these changes at this time. And with that, Mr. Manager, if you could brief us on where the assessor is. I think there's 2 pertinent issues, whether we're anticipating any market rate adjustments this year, and where the assessor stands on increased valuation based on new construction, renovation, that type of an increase.
Thank you, Mayor. So if you look at your summary page, that's that top sheet that I handed out to everyone. Where we're jumping to now is really the tax levy. This is where the valuation, everything will tie in from the tax levy down. So Kelsey will put that up on the screen so people from home can see that. So where we're currently sitting, so Kelsey and I have been having conversations with Karen through our city assessor throughout this entire process. As you know, valuations are set as of April 1st. So we're now 17 days in to the month for their calculations. Obviously, we knew some new development where we were on the new development, and they're still personal property is one that they're still working through currently. That takes longer. That's a lot more work going on site, but they are working through that very well. Where the city assessor currently is at is on the total assessed value that she felt with a conservative number, we could add 25 million into the city's value for assessed value change. So that's from changes that homeowners had made or it's new value growth. And as we get closer to reading in the budget, we'll try to get you that breakdown, or probably right afterwards, because it's going to take her some time to formulate all of that. So where that leaves us is that if you take a look at that last box down at the bottom of your page, with the budget as it stands right now, based on your recommendations at the Tuesday's workshop, those are the numbers that are in here, nothing else. And with the changes that were made, we had been floating the 500,000 from the school. And so the only adjustments from that summary page was that how they were going to break that 500,000 out. So that was done. Some of it was through revenue share, so that's new revenue, and the rest was under reductions in their operating expense. And so that puts the total mill rate increase at 4.5%, or $1.01 on the mill rate. And so the mill rate will now, if this moves forward, would be $23.26, and last year was $22.25.
And just to clarify this, this isn't a final number, but this $25 million is a number that the assessor's comfortable putting in here as a conservative estimate. As with every year, we're not going to know until we get to tax commitment exactly what it is, but we would not expect that 25 million to go down, and reasonably it could go up depending on what they find as they complete their work.
Yeah, we didn't provide you a number that will drop. We felt this was the right number to at least give you a good starting place.
Councilor Milks?
And that's with no market adjustment on single-family homes?
Yeah, this is with no market adjustment. This is just straight. I can't commit to where things will come because that's still, all of that's being done. But right now, as it stands, no market adjustment, just the new valuation change.
Okay.
Councilor Platt?
Is this, I understand we're not there yet, we gotta wait for the final results, but is my math correct in assuming that increased valuation will generate roughly $500,000 in taxes? 500,000? That, I know that we can't throw that number into this graph yet, but I'm just trying to do the rough math. We're talking about a tax levy increase of 3 million, and we're talking about increased value that could generate $23 per thousand of value, which is roughly $500,000. So, not necessarily asking for any action on that, just making sure I understand the math correctly.
Yeah.
Roughly 580,000.
580,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what I get as well.
Yeah.
Other,
That's good growth, right? That's, I don't want to just wash over the fact that we have $25 million in new growth. That is good for the city. That demonstrates that, we're seeing growth where we need to see growth. That's happening. And I think we have, and that's just where things are today. We know we have a lot of permits out, and we have a lot of construction that will be starting probably in the next couple months. So that places us in a good position for next year for continued growth.
other thoughts or questions on the assessor's report? So at that, it leaves us, as the manager said, 4.52% increase. And I think the question to the council at this juncture is whether you're comfortable with that 4.52%, or whether you believe that further reductions in the budget are necessary to bring that down. So any thoughts on that, Council Walker?
Would you tell me what the cost again per thousand would be for taxes? With
2326.
2326?
Yeah, right at the bottom.
Okay. Thank
column,
you.
Under the council column.
Council Whiting?
Yeah, I think this is a responsible budget. There's a lot of shared pain by different departments, and governmental entities are not exempt from inflation and conditions in society. We have a lousy labor pool. We don't have enough workers. That impacts the ability to hire people. It raises pressures on what you have to pay people in order for them to do the work for the city, which people expect. They want their roads plowed. They want police and fire protection. We have to pay those people to provide those services. So I give kudos to the city staff and to the school department for the efforts they've made. I think this is about as low as we can go without doing damage.
I appreciate that, Councilor Whiting. I think that when I said, really focus on that tax levy section, if you look at the municipal operating and the school operating, we're both coming in at 1.9%. So those two line items are really the line items that, what does it take, what's being applied to the tax levy to really operate both the municipal and the city side. We have all the other fixed costs, right? Everything from county tax to intergovernmental and some of our debt service. Those are all fixed, but those are the two where both of those are less than the 2% increase.
Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. Manager, for the work and you and your teams put together, and I'm comfortable with things.
Thanks. Other questions or comments? Council Platt?
Yeah, I'm comfortable where this stands. I would have loved to get the total tax levy down to 5% or less, but to Rick's point, I think we start inflicting some real pain, and I don't think it's worth it. I just don't think it's worth it for morale, reduction of labor. It's not worth it. So I'm comfortable with where the number stands. One thing I would say, though, Councilor Whiting brought up inflation, and it's been a tough time with inflation. I'd counter that a little bit by saying, yes, inflation is affecting this budget, but the real part of this budget is that our debt service is ballooning. So yes, inflation, but really what we're dealing with right now is we are trying to maintain the optics of a responsible budget, but we have debt service that has increased 20%. So through voter referendum, we are obligated to be spending money on this new public services building, the new public safety building. We're going to be in this position every year for the next decade. Not exactly this position, but we need to be anticipating that. And so next year and the year after and the year after, we need to ask ourselves, we need to ask our constituents, you voted for this. Are you comfortable with your taxes going up 7, 8, 9% 1 year or 2 years? Because if you're not, then we are talking about reductions. And it's going to happen every year. We're going to be in this position. So I do appreciate Councilor Whiting's comments. I think there's this added element, though, of the increase in debt service, and that's where we are today. So.
Yeah, and I think Council Platt raises a really good point. CPIU was 2.9%. So both the school and the city on the operating budget side are actually a point below the inflationary pressures on the budget. And as Council Platt points out, what's driving, really, we can go back to the very first night when the manager presented the budget, right? Two of the drivers were the capital improvements, and it was also reduction in non-property tax revenue, a reduction in the rate of increase, right? We got more non-property tax revenue this year than we did last year, but the growth in that line has substantially slowed down. So I think, to follow up on Councilor Platt's very pertinent point, is if we're going to maintain the infrastructure that we have without eliminating some of it, you're either going to have struggles going forward with the capital budget, or your only other option is to start cutting the services that we provide at the level that we have now to help fund capital improvements. And that's what the forward-looking discussion would be about. Council Mill?
I'd add that we also can have a very strong plan and initiative to grow both commercial and residential value. Because if 25 million equals $500,000, then 100 million equals 2 million. And we have places in this city that need to be redeveloped, that need to have value come to the city, and I don't think we are putting the effort that needs to go into that at our current status. I don't mean that people aren't trying and aren't succeeding at what they're doing in their job, but I don't think we have the capability right now within staff and with where we're budgeted and where we're existing to go out and find $100 or $200 million that want to come invest in here, because it's not in Auburn. And so I would add that if we're looking at, there's not much more to cut unless we start cutting services. So we really should be, as a council, start that process of what are we going to do to go find people or entities or businesses that want to come here and take some of our areas that need to be redeveloped, that are low-hanging fruit, that can come and generate $100 or $200 million.
Council Cowan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too am comfortable with where we are. I think we can. We should be exploring how we can do that development. I just wanted to add a little bit more context to the point you were highlighting, Mr. Mayor, and that one of the drivers was the reduction in non-tax municipal dollars. Literally, we went from a $3 million increase from one year to the next to $1 million. It was a third of what we normally got, and it was a $2 million increase on our bond. So, that goes to Councilor Milk's point is, we'll continue to have to be very innovative and creative to find new sources of funding, and development is clearly one. I know that the schools are looking at, as you pointed out earlier, Councilor Milk's trying to perhaps make some major reductions. We have people working on energy efficiency. Every single team, every time you all come up here and talk about what you're doing, it's clear to me that you're constantly thinking about innovation, and I don't know who's putting that into your head, if it's the manager or whether it's just you all helping each other, but it's constantly there, and so I just appreciate that. That's really fundamental in terms of finding that creativity, and I think we can spread that over to development. But it's challenging in Maine. We are not the place that people are coming to naturally, but, we have heard there's projections that Auburn will grow, and I think there's reasons for that. And it's not just that we have a brand new high school, that's a big one, but it's not just that. And so I think we can take advantage of that. We just need to grab on and be willing to ride that rodeo for a bit longer.
Councilor Gary, did you have thoughts?
I know you guys worked hard on the budget. I just, in my heart and mind, I'd like to see it lower, because I deal on a daily basis. Those seniors that are either my age or older that I grew up with, they were adults when I was a kid. They're not getting the cost of living increase that keeps up with the cost of everything that we're doing at what's being thrown at them in life. Some of them are forced to move out of the house. I know that supposedly opens up a door so somebody that needs a house can get one. Or we've got young families that have just started out. Some of them are stay-at-home because they got to take care of the kids. They don't have the income to keep up with everything that we've been throwing at them. I'm not against growth, but we need well-rounded growth. We don't need just this market rate housing. We need this attainable housing so everybody can have a place that they can afford. It's not right for 2 or 3 people that work at Hannaford's They make so good money, but it's not right for 3 of them to have to share an apartment in order to have a roof under their head. 2 of them share one room while they're dating, and one of them sleeps on the couch. And it's more and more across. And then we've got some of our high school kids that for whatever reason, they're couch surfing or classified as unaccompanied youth. They cannot afford to have a place on the outside, so we got to try to find ways, or their friends help them to be able to find a place. And then, I mean, that's part of all this is all adding up to why we're getting so many more homeless people. It's not just because they don't want to be in a building, they like their nomad life, or they don't want to follow rules and stuff. We're getting single people out there because they can't afford the rent or they can't buy groceries. The groceries at the store are going so far up. If it wasn't for some of our grab-and-go stuff, I don't think some of the people that we're feeding is going to get enough food. I mean, I know there's food banks, but not every one of them have that access. So, I don't know, maybe I fell on my head too many times. I just have my heart that I care for those that are most vulnerable. And that's why I want to say lower.
So do you have suggestions on what programs or services would be reduced or eliminated to achieve that?
I would support all the cuts. I know this is going to not play right, but I would support all the new cuts that the city manager found through the departments to bring us down, including all the little bitty ones that we've been throwing back in, with the exception of the homeless situation, because that's a placeholder because we know we're going to have to pay something, and chances are we're going to end up having to pay more than what that placeholder is. And if we don't pay for any of the services, then other line items are going to go up for police service or medical response, because they've been taking care of a lion's share. But what little bits we've been adding to the homeless stuff to try to help relieve it has cut down a little bit on the services of the police and the fire.
Any other questions or comments by the council? Council Walker?
Yes, I'd just like to say that I'd like to see it lower too, but I think most of the cuts and what Phil, the manager, has done, I don't think we can ask for too much more than what we've got. And I'm hoping that, maybe the 25 will come in at 30 million. I'm just hoping things will work the right way, and like Public Works Director said, maybe next year we'll only have 15 storms and not 30. So there may be some good things in the future. We just got to keep our fingers crossed.
Other questions or comments? Yeah, so I think I have the same sentiment as the majority of the council. I think everyone would like to see this lower. I think that we're at a point where we would have to, if we're going to cut this more, we would be having some pretty serious reductions in particular programs or services that I think people in the community rely on. It seems like this, Mr. Manager, this is the sentiment of the council is at this budget in the summary that you presented tonight. And so I will expect that to come before the council for public hearing and first reading on May 5th. And we'll be having CIP discussion at the workshop Tuesday night. Our next meeting's not Monday night because of the holiday. Be on Tuesday night. We'll talk about CIP. And then I think the last couple items I have on my list for tonight are follow-ups to some questions that Councilor Geary raised regarding grab and go and the potato program. And I'll summarize, and then the manager can, if people have more detailed questions, can answer them. So, following on the prior discussion that we had, that the YMCA is opening up a food insecurity program based on some new grant funding that they have, which will be housed at 121 Mill Street. They're going to be one of the providers renting space there. The city's had discussions with them, and they've committed to including the current participants in Grab and Go that are in the 5 Auburn Housing Authority facilities that we're currently serving with Grab and Go, which would be Esplanade, Roque, Barker, Vincent, and Townhouse. So they will, those folks will continue to get similar service to what they're getting today. One wrinkle that we're still working on is the Y does not have transportation capabilities anymore, so the city's talking to some other potential partners about being able to do the delivery, because today, for those facilities, we do a site drop-off once a week. As Councilor Gary has pointed out in the past, some of the residents don't have easy access to go and pick things up. So we're committed to working out the transportation issue. We don't have an immediate answer tonight, but we're in discussions with some potential solutions for that. And within that, I think we talked about this a couple meetings back. We continue the current potato program going forward. And the way, this is all outside the operational budget, because you'll remember that Grab and Go is being funded today through a combination of some fund balance that was put into this in the past and through some grant monies. So this is in an account off the operational budget. There will be there'll be money left in that. We're estimating around $50,000 at the current run rate. That's what we think we'll have at the end of June. We won't have staff to run it once the PAL Center opens, so partnering with the Y is a really good solution to continue this. And the thought would be that we would continue to fund out of those residual funds, the potato program at $5,000 for this year, and then we'll work out a granting mechanism to assist the Y and potentially whoever does the transportation to help them with their funding of their program. So that's the update on that. Are there any questions by the council on that item? As we get through this and get into May to do the budget, the manager and the finance director will work out whatever orders we might need to set that up for the forthcoming year. And then I think the last thing on our checklist we had that we'll need to work on, I don't think we need, unless the council would like, I don't know that we need more discussion tonight, but we still have on the table the pilot program that we talked about Tuesday night for the 3rd ambulance. And where we're at right now is the manager will work up, as a finance director, whatever orders or paperwork that we need. And this, my understanding of the sentiment of the council from the discussion Tuesday night is we'd take that $100,500 out of the fund balance to fund that project for a year, so we can have a full year of data and see what the efficacy of this is and whether it's something that should continue in the next budget. So, anything I've forgotten? We've talked about a lot. I think that's what I have on my list. Are there any other items either directly related to the budget or these sort of special project items that we need to make sure that we have ready for the 5th, that anyone has on their list?
Mayor, I would just for the public, we've been keeping the workshop notes on the budget page on the website. So these documents that we handed out to you tonight for the budget, they will be under there for the 4/17. Actually, they're there already. So those are already posted so the public could follow along. And then what we'll end up doing is, as soon as possible, we'll work up all the other supporting documents that go into the actual budget document that will be on there so that it's posted long before May 5th, so people have a chance to review that, and so that'll be available on the website.
Yeah, and I would ask the counselors to be thinking about CIP. We're going to have the workshop Tuesday, and the current plan, assuming we get through everything we need to on the CIP, is we deal with that on the 5th as well. If not, we'll have to see where we stand after Monday night. Council Platt.
I think I'm almost done my CIP list, kind of where my thoughts are. Is there any value in sending that to the manager ahead of time, or should?
Yeah, if you
Yeah.
could, that'd be
Absolutely.
great.
Okay.
We'll have every director that has a CIP item will be here, so that way there, if you've got a question, we can walk through that during the workshop. But if you can get it ahead of time, that they can start doing that homework and getting that stuff for you.
And as a reminder, the reference document you want to work off of is the CIP plan that we adopted. As a reminder, it's just like every other year, we've adopted a CIP plan. That doesn't ensure that everything that's in that plan for the current year gets funded, but that would be the good place to be looking to, and thinking about CIP and prep for the meeting. Councilor
That's under
Callen.
the blue tab, is that right?
And you also have the FY26 broken out, so if you want to just use that as a sheet, but as the mayor said, if you want to look at those future years, what's coming, that'll be the document to work off from.
Any other comments of the council? Again, Mr. Manager, I want to thank you and the staff. I am down here almost every day, and I see people working very, very hard over the past few months. Also to the school department, this is a difficult year. Appreciate all the work that people have put into it. Really appreciate the time and effort by both the school committee and the council as they've worked through this to get a budget that we can take to public hearing and work on at the meeting on the 5th. If there's nothing else, we'll be adjourned. And again, our regular meetings, Tuesday night, because of the holiday, we'll be here at 5:30 for the CIP workshop, and then regular city council meeting at 7. Thank you all very much.